So I am sure as an entrepreneur, you are told to set goals, and you're probably giving some frameworks about setting goals, and you're probably trying to make those goals sort of tangible and realistic and measurable and all those kind of things. What if? What if the way you're setting goals and the way you are making them, well, maybe not big enough, is actually going against you and is actually forcing you into the grind? So, goal setting with ambition. This is the topic for today's episode, and welcome to the new episode on From Grind to Grace, the podcast for the alternative entrepreneur, the entrepreneur who is ready to flip the script, challenge the norms, and choose freedom first. When freedom is not a destination, when freedom is the path. Because when you stop grinding for freedom, success just tags along for the ride. So the ambitious goal is to make it the standard in the industry for yourself, for your children, and for humanity. And that is what I explore on this podcast, and that's the kind of questions I ask to my guests. And today I have an amazing, she is a professor, PhD. She is master in goal setting, Danielle Magoo. And I want to welcome you on my show. I'm super delighted to have you with me.
Well, I am flippin' excited to be here, Adita.
Yeah, I know, right? I don't think I've ever had an episode on goal setting, which is kind of crazy because goal setting is a big, big, big piece for anyone. Well, I guess anyone in the world, but especially entrepreneurs, right? It's almost like that's where we start. Like it's
Yeah.
almost like, in every coaching program, that's what they give you to do. What are your goals? Where are you heading? What do you want? And I remember that's what I was doing. And I was putting all sorts of funny things, as my goals. And I have to say, the issue that I was having,
Ooh, tell me.
I didn't necessarily believe,
Mm.
the things that I was putting. It felt like almost like I was trying to make my coaches happy, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that's one of the issues?
Ooh, absolutely. I think people in general, but especially women, have spent so much time caring for other people and being so other oriented that when you ask, especially women, well, what are your goals? They are so dissociated from themselves that where they initially go is other people's goals.
Exactly. That's exactly what was happening to me. And I felt it, but I didn't necessarily know how to approach, how to dig that out, how to actually know, first of all, what I wanted. Secondly, what's achievable. Now I forgot, and I hope we're gonna dive into that, right? About achievable. That's
Ooh.
the achievable and what it means in the context of creating your business from the place of freedom as well. But first, if you would like to introduce yourself, that'd be great.
Oh yeah, I can tell you a little bit more about myself. Yeah, so I am a professor. I teach in communication and media, and I teach classes like storytelling and identity and start a podcast. And so what's really funny is for me, I started setting goals because I was at a place in my life where I was absolutely flat. So when I was probably like 20, I decided that I wanted to be a professor. And I don't really know how I came to that conclusion other than I saw what my professors were doing. And I was like, well, that would be cool. I didn't really know what it would take to, get a master's degree and then a PhD and then to go on the job market and then have to earn tenure. And so all of a sudden I was at like probably around the age of 35-ish. And I had just had my first kiddo and I just earned tenure. And legitimately, my entire adult life, I'd been working towards that goal. Like everything was like towards those things. And I should have been like elated, but I remember being like really ticked that I had to go to this awards dinner, right? Where they like gave you tenure. I was like, really? Like, you're gonna make me go to work outside of work hours and like put on nice clothes. So like you can tell me that I basically sacrificed everything in my life for this goal. Like, like, and part of it, I was just so flat and so burnt out and probably demoralized as well. And, I was also postpartum, like, so I'm like moving into this new role of being a parent and really rethinking my relationship to work in light of becoming a parent. But also, like, once you earn tenure as a faculty member, at least in the United States, you do have a little bit more freedom to decide what your next projects are going to be. A little bit more.
Mm,
And I was like, well, so what do I want to do? And I was like, I had no idea. And here's the thing is like up to that point, I didn't realize that I had been doing things to like check off boxes. Like I was really excited about the things that I was doing. I thought. But all of a sudden when I didn't have to, I was like, I ain't doing that. Like, but then I was like, well, what do you want to do? I don't know. And so what's weird is I was like, one night, it was like in the middle of the night. I couldn't sleep because of anxiety. And I was up and I had like a planner, my planner out. And I was like putting stickers in it because I had heard like a student give a speech on like how she was using like decorative planning as a way to manage her anxiety, right? Like if your to-do list like freaks you out, just like, I don't know, slap some stickers on it and like let's have fun with it, right? So I like literally in the middle of the night, I'm like putting stickers on my planner and like trying to figure out, well, like what matters to me? What really matters to me? And so I turned to like goal setting and I read everything I could about goal setting. I read everything I could about time management and I learned a lot of things that were really, really helpful. But I also felt like something was like missing in those approaches as like a woman. Like, well, one, like a lot of times people would set goals using like life domains, but like physical space wasn't there. And so much of my life was like, well, how do I want to organize my pantry? And how am I going to do meal plans? And how am I going to do all of this other stuff? And it was like, there is no space for me to have a goal
mm.
around that stuff or taught me how to really manage my time with those things. And so it was like either you could go in the mommy space and you could get some of that, or you could go into like the professional goal setting space. But like they were two different things, you know? Um, and then it took me years of kind of like doing that to like I did find myself in a lot healthier place. But then I had realized, oh my gosh, I have been studying creative forms of communication for personal and social development for the last 20 years. And I didn't recognize that like what I was doing in goal setting and planning was actually the same thing that I've been doing in my scholarship, which
Mm.
is like how do we use creative forms of communication to create change in ourselves and in others? And that's been like a huge aha for me too. So I don't know, that was a really long introduction, but there you go.
Yeah, no, no, this is super. And I was listening to you and I was overwhelmed with all the memories, how I first started on my journey, how I was setting goals, how the coach, the very first coach I remember at the time, he didn't have a family, and I did, and I had a baby. And I was like, and I didn't even think about it. Like we are so conditioned and programmed. Like we set goals and we don't think about what that's gonna cost us every day. I was handling my daughter was a toddler. She was hanging off my arms. I was cooking. As I was watching her, she was that age when I had to watch her all the time, right? And I'm cooking and she's pulling my skirt and I'm watching a training video and I'm pausing the training video every 10 seconds because I can't hear anything because of her. And then I'm dragging this hot pot on the counter, burning the counter. There's a hole in the counter now. You know, it's crazy. So like nobody tells like, and I remember he was saying, disappear for 2 years, cut off the social life, cut off everything. And it was a synonym of being a good entrepreneur.
Mm. Well, the thing that's so interesting too is like I felt like, okay, I'm gonna set goals in that moment, like in that moment where you're like, burning your countertop and like barely holding it together. I was like, I can't set goals. Like what am I thinking? Like you're right, like I gotta cut things out because I can't imagine adding any more pressure to my life. And goals just sounded like pressure. Like, oh crap. Now I'm setting expectations for myself that I got to meet. And if I don't meet, then I just am failing at more things.
Yeah, and also, do you find that people think what goals are appropriate?
Oh, absolutely.
Maybe,
Again, like I didn't think
maybe
that.
the goals I'm setting are too lame, or
Yeah.
right?
Well, either I think like what's so interesting is that when you're in the muck of it, you do have this inclination to go, okay, I'm just gonna like disappear. Right? Like I'm just gonna have like one thing, you know? And what's so hard about that is on one hand, many people that I work with are in cycles of overcommitment. And you do need to break those cycles of overcommitment. But on the other hand, it is the big rich things that fill our lives with meaning. And so if we only let ourselves have goals like, oh, I'm gonna like have clean countertops, and then we're like, oh, I keep having clean countertops. Why don't I feel fulfilled? Well, because that's a crappy goal. Right? Like, that's not a fulfilling goal. And yet, especially, I think, like, when you have young kids, like, you're stripped from having any desire that's your own.
Hmm. Yeah, like we used to make a joke, you make a coffee in the morning and you finish drinking it in the evening.
Yes,
But that's actually, it's not, it's the reality.
it is. It really is the reality. And, like, like, nobody told me that, like, my goals could be, like, we're gonna go around the lazy river 93 times this summer. And my kids and we're gonna go down the water slides this many times. Or, like, what would happen if we went to amusement parks 6 times this summer? No one told me that I could have goals like that.
Hmm.
My goals as a parent needed to be very serious about like my kids' development and getting them potty trained really early and and reading first before all the other kids and not like I'm like no, like my kids' goal is we're going around the like lazy river 93 times. And I think so what's really hard is that on one hand, one I would say I struggle to encourage people to set goals until they've connected with themselves again. Because I do think that what can happen is that you get in a cycle of goal setting where you are setting goals that are other people's goals.
I
So,
love that.
first, set a foundation for understanding how you're spending your time and the choices you're making around that and how that's cultivating your identity, like how we spend our days makes us who we are.
Yeah.
And to really so plan goal plan is the name of my podcast and business, and I say that it's also my method, that you first set some foundations for planning, and that planning is personal development, not time management. It's a way that we collect data on ourselves, but also the ways that we show up. And then from there, set goals. Set goals from a place of knowing yourself. And then we can plan again. And this time we're going to optimize to get crap done.
I love it. It's beautiful, goal setting as a form of personal transformation.
Absolutely. And it took me a while to realize that that's what I was doing.
Wow, that's so cool. So what do you do to help people, women, to connect with themselves?
So some of it's kind of simple. Some of it is just like, what are some of your favorite touches, like, tactile experiences? What are textures, touches that you enjoy? What are
Mm.
your favorite flavors? What are some of the things that you do that light you up? And it's amazing. One of one of the first times that I realized how disconnected we were is I was talking to a friend and client who I had asked her, well, like, what do you like doing? Like, if you had all the time, like, what would you do? And she was like, play volleyball. And she like stopped herself and she was like, oh my gosh, I loved playing volleyball in my 20s. I actually think I would bake now because
Mm.
she went back to like what her favorites were before she had kids, not
Yeah.
realizing like her whole, like everything had, even though she still liked volleyball, that's actually not how she would choose to spend her free time. But she hadn't realized that she'd sort of transformed as she'd moved into these new identity and roles. And so she had to reconnect with even just like what her favorites were. So some of it is sort of just simple things like recognizing like what lights you up, what gives you energy, starting to pay attention to that. Some of that is, taking some time to do some reflections around what are your favorite smells.
This is it. I think, and actually, I did that in the past and I forgot about it, but I think it was today or yesterday. I can't remember. Yesterday, I actually looked at my calendar yet again, and I actually blocked off the times where I'm gonna like go meditate, do yoga, this kind of yoga on these days and this kind of yoga on those other days, actually because it kept being pushed and
Yeah.
away all the time with all the other things. Now it's tangible, you know.
I'm excited for you. I'm so excited for
And
you.
it feels so liberating.
Well, and it's so common, I think, to sort of go like, okay, after I've taken care of all of these things for other people, then I get to meditate.
Hmm.
After I take care of all of these things for other people, then I get to exercise or I get to have, you know, dinner with friends or my husband, right? My partner, right? Like it's almost like once all of the things are done on the to-do list, then I can take care of myself. But like one, that to-do list is never getting done. Like coming to acceptance to that is like wildly liberating, right? Like it's never getting done and it's okay. It's okay. And and also that these things are not like rewards, they're essentials. And
Mm.
it's so hard because like when you're especially in those cycles of like overcommitment and overperformance and you are in the muck of it and like legitimately caring for little bodies is bananas. Like, it's really hard work. And it's fun and wild and sometimes kind of gross. Parenting little ones. But like at the same time, like we can't show up and model for them the fullness of who we are without these things. And also, I don't want my daughter to grow up and never take time to meditate, never take time to exercise, never take time to have dinner with friends. Like, I want my daughter to grow up and to be a full human.
Exactly. Uh,
And
you
yeah.
are so on point because um, as part of my, me time planning and putting it on the calendar, I was also thinking, okay, there's still leftover meetings in the evening, this and that and whatever. And sometimes it's okay, and some of them are actually can be quite fun. And okay, just if you imagine in with having in mind everything that I'm doing, only a few days ago, I realized, so what it's fun, so what is not a problem for me. What is my daughter seeing when I'm disappearing to these meetings
Yeah.
in the evening? Sometimes skipping the bedtime because there is a meeting,
Yep.
you know? So it's
Well,
not just
like,
about us.
yeah. And that, like, I love my work and that it brings me fulfillment. And so, yeah, mom's gonna go take, my daughter says, take a meeting, right? Um, I'm gonna go take a meeting, and in that meeting, I'm gonna connect with other people and I'm gonna do problem solving, and I'm like contributing to a community and to a public and into a world that I want to make a good place. And I do some of that by loving on her. And I do
Mhm.
that by sometimes like meeting and doing work that is its own form of loving on other people.
Exactly. Yeah. So, do you find that there are different types of people in terms of how they are setting, or maybe how they trip on differently
Hmm.
while they are setting goals?
Yeah. Yeah, I do. And I do think, so one, I oftentimes do find that there are some people when it comes to planning that are very good planners. They'll sit and they'll map everything out and they'll have a great plan in place, but then they don't ever honor it, right? Then like life gets lifey and you know, they made a plan, but they don't follow through. So their issue is sometimes like follow through. And then they feel a lot of guilt and ickiness around like, oh, I don't ever follow through or I'm not consistent or something like that. Then there are folks that I think just struggle to plan, right? They're like, oh, I'm gonna wing it. Like, um, and what I will say is there's strengths in both of these. And then when it comes to goal setting, you were talking about this word achievable, and I have like such mixed feelings, and actually there's some mixed research around this as well. But what's hard is it sort of depends on where you are in your own journey. I find that if some people are in a place where they're lacking some self-trust and self-confidence, and I would say also self-efficacy, so like the belief in themselves, which is connected to self-confidence, starting small might be really important because you just need to prove to yourself that you can do it and say, hey, I said I was going to do this and I did it. And then I said I was going to do it and I did it. And then I said I was going to do it and I did it. And you
Mhm.
need to kind of like build that trust in yourself.
Mhm.
For people that are in a place where you already trust yourself, sometimes we keep ourselves small by not letting ourselves set those impossible goals. But like you said, like if you're setting something that you don't really believe yourself too, like it needs to be impossible, wild, audacious, bold, right? And sometimes you're like, I actually don't know how I'm gonna accomplish this goal, but I believe in it and I know it's important. The how is gonna somehow show up. It's gonna reveal itself.
Yeah, you touched so I and I when I was doing the intro, I was talking about ambitious goals, and I know you and I talked separately about crazy, insane goals,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's the word Benjamin Hardy uses.
Impossible goals.
Impossible goals, he
Yeah.
says. And I was like, what in the world? Right? How can you? Right? So I would love for us to chat about the impossible goals and how the hell they actually can make you free
Oh, yeah.
or more free, which is a crazy idea, crazy concept, but it makes so much sense.
So I was really fortunate. I got to like work with Benjamin Hardy. I think you did too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and there is legitimate research around here too. And I actually think it's in the area of management. And one of the powers of impossible goals is that it flips you out. Like if you have a goal that's so wild, you can't just keep doing what you've been doing.
Hmm.
It wiggles, it jiggles your brain into thinking differently.
Which is
And
available.
it's totally available. I will tell you though, I kept trying to like force myself like intellectualize myself into finding a solution with a possible goal. And what I am sort of learning is that it's not always something that you fully strategize yourself into figuring out, but rather like allowing yourself to connect to the future where that impossible goal is met and just I know this sounds so weird, but making your decisions in the present from the space of that impossible goal having been met
Mhm.
and just trusting in some ways that like the how is going to keep unfurling as you go. And so like that's as a planner, this is really hard for me because I want to be like do some sort of like backwards design. Like here's my end goal that is impossible. And so in order to like meet that, I would need to hit all of these milestones. And I kind of think that impossible goals are more emergent, right? They're more iterative, like, ooh, I tried this thing out. And like that revealed this opportunity and unlocked this new way of thinking. And now I'm going to go back and try this other thing and I'm going to make these tweaks and these adjustments and I'm going to just kind of keep doing it from the space of the vision of the impossible and the belief in the possible. I don't know if it sounds so hippity dippity.
So I don't know, maybe it will help to have an example, but you know, so I guess for me it meant filtering out, and you kind of said it, like filtering out things that I should not be. So it's not like you will definitely get to the impossible goal,
Yeah,
right? It's more about filtering out the things that are not moving you towards or in that direction, which we
absolutely.
all do plenty of.
Yes. And it's so hard to trust, right? Because a lot of times you're really comfortable and maybe even incredibly competent at some of the things that now you're being asked to filter out to make space for stuff that it you don't necessarily feel as comfortable or confident in.
Yeah, and so one example maybe I was using and sometimes use with people because my what I do is very high leverage. So I'm so
Hmm.
fortunate to actually have discovered this stuff because that's exactly how it positions your thinking or repositions how you think
Yeah.
about creating your business, client acquisition, those kind of things. But one of the things, like, when I need to tell people to explain to them that other ways exist, and I'm like, okay, so imagine maybe it's an extreme example, but imagine Elon Musk, right? Like if you're on the linear growth path, imagine Elon Musk. How many years? Or does he have like a million times more hours in the day? No, obviously he's doing things differently for him to achieve what he is doing.
Yeah.
So what does that say? We don't know how he does that, but we know that different ways exist. And so now we are like, oh, okay, let me find out, you know?
Well, and like you sort of said, is because you're filtering this stuff out, like you actually have less to do,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And that also then frees up space for our brain to do, I believe, the really deep work that is going to unlock some of the brilliant strategy that's high leverage that we need. Or even just the space to go like, oh, well, now I have time to just interact and have conversations with people. And then in a conversation with someone, you because you've made space for that, that also doesn't feel like serious work, right? That's not the checking off of a million boxes, right? You're like talking to them and they're like, oh my gosh, like I know this person that I think would be an amazing person for you to connect with. And all of a
Mm,
sudden, like that's your who not how, to use the language of
mm.
Benjamin Hardy. And so,
You know, you know why you reminded me of why this approach is beautiful, and I need to actually do it again because I haven't, like, I did it and I kind of streamlined, and then I just kept going with the streamline, but then you can do it again, right?
yeah,
So, so I think what is beautiful and actually the very foundation of what I do is then you start thinking in terms of principles
yeah,
and laws, and they are naturally powerful because we are overwhelmed with all the tactics and all the what I call junk strategies and methods, man-made stuff that removes us, creates barriers between us and nature, us and universe, and so like I have this analogy, comparing avocado toast with some processed food. As
hmm,
avocado toast is so simple, so nourishing at the same time. So I think
yeah, yeah,
that's why it's so attractive to me personally. It's all about the laws of the universe.
right. Well, and I guess like if I were to offer like a tangible example, is that I realized going through the process that, at least in my own business, actually in so many areas of my life, I needed to I needed visibility. And I was really uncomfortable with that because I associated wanting to be visible with, like, maybe needing validation or being like wanting fame or like all of these things that I had attached other icky, things to. And so, like, one, I had to, part of my, 10% or 10x impossible goal required me to do sort of the internal deep work around learning, like, well, what are the principles of visibility?
Hmm.
And, also coming to terms like, and I'm going to bring a little bit of my own faith into this. I hope that's okay. But like for me, realizing that I had always defined humbleness in something that I was supposed to be as being small and quiet, as opposed to humbleness is living out my unique abilities, that,
Hmm.
my God-given abilities. Like to believe, and what's so wild about that is, so I just started focusing on showing up as myself and letting myself and be visible in new ways. And I just had my first LinkedIn post go viral. I have like 200,000 views, like 2,000 likes on it, hundreds of comments. And in the span of about 24 to 48 hours, I tripled my following on LinkedIn after several, like it did in a couple of days what took me a couple of years to do. That's easier. Like
So
that's
what
easy
did you do? Like, what? So I'm guessing, like, when you say visible, it's not about the tactical things, right?
in some ways it was me sharing a story that was vulnerable,
Mm.
right? It was me saying, "Hey, I was burnout and I was demoralized." And also those are two different things.
And so the principle is just being human.
Yes.
Powerful.
Hmm.
Yeah. So what are we saying to the one listening, right? So we did talk about goals from different angles, but now we're talking about impossible goals. And I guess the reason why I'm touching on this is the topic of freedom.
Yeah.
And so I do remember, and is it your experience? I think you kind of hinted at as well. When I sat in that space of, so first of all, it was not very straightforward to come up with the 10x goals, right? There is resistance.
No.
There is resistance. But when I agreed with myself, this is my 10x goals, and I was start when I started peeling layers of my activities, daily activities, I started feeling so much lighter. It's
So
like
much lighter.
space expanded.
And then you have so much more energy and you have so much more clarity of thought. And so like he talks about time expands, also like what you focus on expands, right? And when I really do believe that time is abundant and that I struggle to even use, I oftentimes describe myself as a time management coach because people understand that. But like, I don't, like, time isn't something to be managed,
Mm.
right? I really believe that time is abundant, especially when you're filling it with things that ignite possibility. And like, when you are working in a space of like your own unique ability and you're jazzed and you can get into, a flow state, for example. I think they're really connected. Like you really aren't operating on the same 24 hours that everyone else is. And so it's counterintuitive because like when I started doing things that were really filling me, all of a sudden I had energy to be present with my kiddos. All
Mm.
of a sudden, like doing the dishes at night like almost felt relaxing. Like, oh, I'll chat with my kids and put the dishes away. And like where before it felt like, oh my gosh, I just did so much today and I have to do the flipping dishes too. And so like it shifts your posture towards everything.
So powerful. And so we are back to the place where we are saying, did you know, like every time we are talking about something important, something that matters, we go back to that place. And the whole thing, like that very thing the podcast is about, doing things from the place of freedom. So now, instead of making freedom a goal,
Mm.
right? We are saying you need to become free on the inside and you need to go get into the flow state in order to, um, I don't know, for all the insights to flow.
Well, sort of like I think about it almost like in the language of the future self, right? Like if I can have a clear sense and clear connection to my future self, like the more sharp that image of her becomes for me, where freedom is at the core of that. Like you said, you make your decisions from the space of freedom. And like that's like such a it's a hard one to explain, but you feel it and you know it when you do it. Like when I'm making a choice and a decision, not from my present circumstances that sometimes can feel they present circumstances sometimes can feel constrained. They can feel like not enough. They can feel like not abundance, right? But my future self, she's got abundance, right? And so if she has freedom. And so if I can make choices from a space of freedom, you make such different and smarter choices. And when you make smarter choices, things get easier.
Yeah, yes, so beautiful. And you know, keep saying from this place of or space of freedom, it's such a challenging thing to tell people how to do it, isn't it? Like,
Mhm.
and I think all we can do is to sort of raise awareness and just say, well, look, you need to know it's available, it's possible, and do whatever you want. And there are actually many podcasts where I had guests and we talked, like I talked to so many people about how to, how to sort of like invoke that, but also it's just knowing that it's available and trying to find a way there are so many ways, right? Find a
Yeah.
way, do something, you know? It's so much more, first of all, easier, secondly, productive.
Mm. Yeah, I like to say generative sometimes, like if people have like weird hangups around productive, but it as you were talking, it reminded me, so like I teach this in some of my courses too. And well, one, if we're struggling to connect with our present self, like if I don't even know who I am in this moment right now, because I have just been caring for others, which by the way, you all is beautiful and is such a superpower to be able to like connect, to be so other oriented and be so connected with others and like what other people's needs are. And like, especially like in marketing and in business, to be able to connect to what other people are going through, that's a flippin' superpower, right? But it also means that we haven't sometimes connected with ourselves. But then, like, we've also had a relationship to the future where all of our relationship to the future is anxiety, right? So, like, I had a student that was like, "Oh, I don't want to connect to my future self because when I'm in the future, I'm anxious."
So sad.
Right? And she had kind of been told by a therapist, and I've heard this in other ways, right? Like, depression is when you're stuck in the past, and anxiety is when you're stuck in the future. And I said, yeah, but it's your orientation towards the future. We can have a really liberating orientation towards the future where the what ifs aren't spirals of anxiety and, like in danger and trying to protect ourselves. And so, like kind of like, well, how do we evoke it? I think like, some of it, you're right, there's so many different ways to get there, which is exciting and encouraging. But I think that some of it is like we have to know who we are right now and connect to ourselves in the present so that then we have the imaginative space to move into the future in a really healthy way where those possibilities of freedom are so clear to us.
Yeah, beautiful. Is there a way that you guide people? So you start with dialing into yourself, but is there anything else like you get people to do in order to set goals and do the planning? And I guess one other reason why I'm asking that question is
Mm.
Um, Again, same topic, freedom, how to make sure that my planning is actually legit in terms of in
Yeah.
terms of me actually still living my life. Or maybe I hasn't been living my life. Now I want to live my life. So how do I do it?
Yeah, so one thing that I teach is my rise ritual of transformation. So I think that right now, hot stuff is habits. And I think habits are wildly important. But habits are really designed to, in the end, be unconscious,
Mm,
automatic.
mhm.
And I actually think that we live in a world, though, that already has us sort of like dissociating or like making so many things so that we don't have to think about them, right? Because we want it to be easy, darn it, right? And so we like habits are really desirable. But I think the difference between habits and practices or routines and rituals is like rituals are designed to move us from one state to another. They're designed to maintain presence, to evoke our senses. And so one thing that I encourage people to do before they actually start in that very first phase of planning as personal development and the foundations of planning is to set a ritual where you go, well, what is my current state and what's the state that I want to move myself into? And how do I very intentionally craft a ritual that invites my presence and evokes my senses? It's not just up here, it's like in my whole body. And and I and like from there, all of my planning practices then, so things like your daily top 3 or your calendar to-do list, though are done in this space, the container of a ritual that's connected to the state that you want to move into.
I love it so much. Love it so much. I think there is a book called The Power of Rituals or
Yeah,
something like that.
yeah,
It was such a good read, and it made so much sense, and it brought me back to my roots as well. And I never really paid, or I was actually even sort of against traditions and, kind of thing. They are so important, and that book explains it very well. But I absolutely love what you said. Actually, create a ritual. Actually, reminded me of how I was about a year ago. Me and a bunch of girlfriends went to make bread, and you might think making bread is just putting all sorts of ingredients together and putting it in the oven and whatever. But the host of the event created a ritual,
oh,
talked about traditions, we about energies, about how you make bread and it comes out differently based on, I don't know, your cycle, your mood, your anything.
oh, I love that.
It's like, oh my God, this is suddenly now. Okay, so I brought a bread starter home, and now I make bread, and now bread making is a completely different thing ever
Yeah,
since. Rather just, let's just cook something up and put the ingredient this and that. No, and what use exactly? So why not do use the same thing in business and whatever? Right? Oh my God, I love that so much.
yeah, it's exciting stuff. And I mean, I do think that part of our resistance to rituals is that rituals oftentimes happen in sacred spaces, but also, rituals have so much transformative potential, but they actually, on the flip side, do maintain status quo. And I think that that's important to like recognize. So like for example with like marriage, when you go to get married, right, you enter as a single person, right, and at the end of a marriage you are a unit, and so you are transformed. But marriage ceremonies uphold all sorts of different norms in society about who gets to get married and what, I don't
Mhm.
know, like what marriage is. And And so it is stabilizing in its own ways. But the cool thing about you designing your own rituals in your business, right, or in your personal life, is that you get to choose how it transforms you and you get to choose what it's stabilizing.
So cool. Love it. Yeah, this is gold. Thanks for sharing this because, okay, goal setting ritual, planning ritual, whatever. Oh my God, that's really cool. Love it. Love it. And I am, I guess I'm so excited because finding meaning in every single little thing is so important for me. I don't know why, but it's been always like that, you know.
Yeah. Well, and some people get exhausted by that too. They're like, oh my gosh, Danielle, you want me to make meaning and everything. And what I will say is like, look, you get to choose. Like, if you want your dishes to be a habit and you want it to be unconscious, go for it. Use a habit there. But
Mm.
if you want to like evoke Trina Khan here and like feel the water on your hands and smell the suds and like transform the experience of doing dishes into a mindful ritual, go for it.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, really, really cool. Oh, it changes so a lot. Such a tiny shift.
Hmm.
That ritual can live in your head. Like,
I
I'm
love
a
that.
meditation. I'm meditating. That's my meditation. As I do my dishes.
Yeah.
You know, super cool. Right. What a conversation. Okay. So if somebody is stuck, and that's part of my goal, and with these conversations is that, if somebody's in the place of grind, feeling stuck, trapped, capped, and like she's feeling it. She knows that. She kind of knows that, but she doesn't see a way out. What could be a little shift, little tiny shift she could do today to get out of that place in terms
Recently,
of goals
yeah.
and planning?
Yeah. I recently had a client kind of say, "Oh my gosh, I just kind of like broke down. I couldn't do it anymore. I took 2 hours off, even though I'm going to be like way behind. And I went out late in the sunshine." And she's like, "But like now, Danielle, like I need a system." And I was like, "I think that you need more time to lay in the sunshine."
Mm,
So, different people are stuck for different reasons. But a lot of times, if we're in that cycle of grind, we're in that cycle, get curious about it. Say like, well, what am I trying? Am I trying to prove something with doing all of this? Have I
mm,
attached my worth? Am I not feeling seen? Um, like, because like I realized my own cycle of overcommitment was really about me trying to prove to other people that I was good enough. And
mm,
so like if I can cross this off or cross that off or cross that off, then maybe people will see me as good enough. But if I just could believe that I was good enough, then I could let go of that cycle. Like I could say no and everything wasn't going to come crashing down. And so sometimes, you know, something as simple as looking at your calendar, like look at what you've been doing and go, well, what things are filling me? Where are they draining my energy? How do I do more of the things that are filling me and take out some of the things that are draining me? But also, like, who do I want to be with my time? I'll have people do this activity. It's a classic, kind of every day set your daily top three.
mm,
But where I do things a little bit different. So, at the start of the day, write down what are three things that at the end of the day you would feel satisfied, you'd feel good. And I have them write those things down, but you collect it for like 2 weeks. So you're collecting data on yourself through
mm,
this. And then you look at the patterns and you go, oh, which of one of those three things did you actually do? Are there things that you just routinely don't do, even though you've
Mhm.
named them as those important things? And what you find out is a lot of times people will be like, oh, all of the things that are for myself, I'm not doing. So, like, I'm getting the work task done, I'm taking care of my kids' things, but I'm never exercising,
Hmm.
you know? Um, or, I have them go and imagine an alien came down from some other planet and grabbed your daily top three for the last 2 weeks. What would they think your priorities were? So some people will be like, "Oh, my family's my most important priority," and then nowhere on any of their daily top three is their family. Oh, like getting clients, is, one of my biggest priorities right now. But then there's no tasks on there that leads to actually getting a client, right? And so what become it was a really lovely way to sort of like collect, planning isn't just about the future, it's also like how do I collect some data on what am I saying my priorities are based on those daily top three? And is there a disjoint between what I'm saying and what I actually feel? And if so, like what's going on there? Let's get curious.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
Yes, get curious, collect data on yourself, and then prove yourself wrong.
Oh yeah, I love that. Yes.
Oh, super. Okay. Wow. Okay. So I ask all my guests, three blitz questions,
Gotcha.
right? But before then, let's talk about, well, tell the one listening about who you work with, what you do, where they can find you.
Yeah. I work with high achieving women who, on the outside to other people, they look like they have it all together, but on the inside, it feels like something's missing. And using mindful planning and holistic goal setting, I help them feel on the inside the way that they look like to other people on the outside.
Amazing. And so where should they go connect with you?
Yeah, go to plangoalplan.com and you can find me there.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, very cool. Okie dokie, the questions. So, what change would you like to see in the world?
I would like to see people being bold with their work in a way that makes impact. And I would like to see people being present in their personal and family lives. People that work present at home.
Love it. Yeah. And being bold, I guess it doesn't mean working harder.
No, dream bigger.
Yeah. Okay, the second one is what legacy would you personally like to create and leave?
Mm. So this one's actually not as connected with my business. It is and it isn't. Um, I want to change how education happens in the world.
I
Learning, I love curiosity, and I find education should be empowering and it should change people's lives.
and it's the opposite way, isn't it?
I don't know that that's happening. And I would revolutionize the
But I hear you. I hear you. If you get me started on this, it's another topic, where I could
Yeah.
bomb cheer up. And yep, I totally agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think with AI, things might start changing very
Oh, they are they
fast
are
now.
they are
I
they are
think
and both
did Bill Gates
scary and I think
sorry?
in scary and exciting ways, I think.
Yeah,
Both.
but
Both things.
something is gonna happen. Did you hear or see? I saw an article title somewhere. Bill Gates said that most teachers are not gonna be needed in like 10 years or something like that. So I don't know. I don't know what to think about it. It's kind of like, and my daughter still falls into, she's still gonna be Well, she's gonna be about to finish, I think, or but things will start changing before then. So
Oh, our kids will grow up never knowing a world without AI, which is bananas.
it's crazy. I can't even, I don't know what to think about it. I think my brain refuses to think about it too much.
Well, and I will say that right now our systems, our structures in higher education, at least in the United States, but my guess is this pertains much more broadly, um, are really not structured to adapt with the nimbleness and the flexibility that I think the world's changing very quickly.
Yeah,
And so I think that our structures and our systems are going to have to change dramatically if we're going to want to be able to adapt.
absolutely. If we want to be different from robots.
Absolutely. Oh, well, and I will say though, like well, I could go off on a tangent about this.
We are doing it
Yeah,
already.
yeah, yeah, we're already there. We're already there. But like I think that, you know, there's so much information out there already. How we learn is still like a human experience. So, yeah, I don't know. That's all that I say for now.
Yeah, okay. Yep, agree. So the last one is when you hear from grind to grace, what goes through your mind?
Mhm. I actually think that my immediate thought is that in order for us to stop grinding, we have to forgive ourselves for how much, like, yeah, I'll leave it at that maybe. That in order to stop the grind, that we have to forgive ourselves.
Wow, never thought about it, but it's very powerful. Yeah, wow. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here and sharing your wisdom, your energy, everything. Amazing. Great conversation. And the one listening, again, this is this is a mission. And this is a message that I want you to hear. And I think it's worth sharing as well with anyone who you think could benefit or be helped by. So subscribe and share. And thanks for tuning in. And I'll talk to you again next week. Stay graceful.